Thank you very much, and appreciation to all of the prior speakers. We gather here today on the eve of the final presidential debate to address issues that have cut across a wide spectrum, far beyond just issues relating to what motivates the Jewish vote, what impacts the Jewish vote. I'd like to cover a number of issues with you in the time that I have. Ranging from social justice issues to national security to economic security, energy security, and an issue we heard today that drives many people, and that is a combination of Israel, Iran, and foreign policy issues. As it relates to social justice issues, one certainly understands that the nature and history and teachings of the Jewish people is that of a giving people, of a giving nation. We believe in tzedakah, we believe in charity, we believe in helping people by blind giving and in a way designed to have them stand up for themselves because they are able to stand up for themselves. And there's a big difference, therefore, between the approach that the Republican Jewish Coalition, which I represent, and Republican Jews take as opposed to those from the Democratic Party. Certainly, all of us believe in the social network and the need for a social net under the social network of people. But the question is, where do those entitlements go? We're just hearing on the news that entitlements continuing as they have allowed more people to simply rely upon the entitlements, and therefore less are looking for work, and that has had a tremendous impact on the economy because as they have come to rely upon those entitlements, they are not searching out the job positions that do exist. They need education for that, and you heard the governor in the last two debates ago talk about the issue of spending money on green energy as opposed to spending money on teachers. From a social justice point of view, there's another factor that played into 2008 and is playing out right now. It's often referred to as equality. It's been referred to by some as who's playing or might play the race card. What factor did that have? I can tell you there are many people within the Jewish community who supported President Obama for every reason and have been very concerned, some even offended, that during the course of the presidency, he and his family refer to him as the African-American president as opposed to the president of all of the American people. From a social justice point of view, no question, most of the American Jewish community, as you heard today, has been traditionally democratic. There has been a shift, and that shift is indeed focusing upon issues of additional concern. Of course, you heard today about the support for gay rights, the support for pro-choice. That is an issue as it relates to this election, and an issue where the Democrats clearly are winning on the positions as opposed to the Republicans. Let me shift to the issue of economic security. The American Jewish community strongly believes in standing up, paying our bills, being responsible, where we can help others do so, but that we have to also help ourselves to have the financial wherewithal to provide what the seniors need, to provide what all people need of limited means. But from an economic security point of view, the American Jewish community strongly believes in the need to have a balanced budget and not spend more than we're taking in, to not have $1 trillion of deficit added on of debt every single year, because that is just outrageous, and to go forth with 4 more years is unacceptable to those who support Governor Romney and those who support Republican Jewish positions. From an economic security point of view, it is just absolutely clear that the difference between the Obama administration and the Romney administration is as follows. On the Obama administration, it's go forward, we'll finish the job over the next 4 years, give us the next 4 years. The Romney camp has very clearly said we cannot afford to go forward on that track. We cannot afford to keep spending money we don't have. We cannot afford to be borrowing these billions from China and sacrificing our children's future to foreign governments like China that buy us. On the issue of energy security, there's also a big difference. The Obama administration has taken the view, Keystone, no. Drilling, no. Shift, some. Where has been the big shift needed from oil dependency on Saudi Arabia, oil dependency on Venezuela, and a concentration on America being energy independent? There has been rhetoric from the Obama administration, but there has not been proof and action from the Obama administration. On energy security, the Romney campaign has made it very clear. Keystone should have been signed. Keystone would have been signed. They've made it very clear there has to be a big shift to American independence as it relates to energy, and that includes energy from solar, energy from wind, energy from hydrogen, energy from ethanol. The governor mentioned it in his last speech. And the governor has made it very clear that he's very different from the president on those issues. On the issues of national security, leading from behind has never been the American way and has never been the way of the American Jewish community. We believe in taking a position, advocating for the position, and that's a position that can't just be based upon words, but has to be based upon right. And it has to be deeds-oriented, not words-oriented. On a national security point of view, from a foreign policy point of view, and as it relates to Israel and Iran that I will close with, the fact of the matter is there is no question that the American Jewish community is very, very concerned, and rightly so, about the direction the Obama administration has taken. The president, in his first call, one of his first calls was to Mahmoud Abbas. Nothing wrong with that. But the president has admitted himself his own failure in bringing together a peace process. Why is that? It was the president who put Mahmoud Abbas, shall we say, up in the tree saying, so long as there's settlement building, you need not negotiate. It's the president himself who said negotiations must start from the pre-67 borders. On the other hand, Prime Minister Netanyahu has made it very clear, negotiations without precondition is what the Prime Minister will address, the same way he did with President Clinton at the Wye River Accords and the Hebron Accords. He was the last Prime Minister to reach an agreement. On the issue of national security, interfacing with the issue of Israel and Iran, the Prime Minister showed when he was at the United Nations a little bomb with the red line, and that red line means you can't get to capability, because after there's capability, you don't know where the bomb will be, and words matter. Words mattered when, in the build-up to World War II, we were hearing from the Germans, as Jim Woolsey wrote in 2010, we were hearing from the Germans all kinds of words, and nobody took them seriously. From Ahmadinejad, we've been hearing terrible words, and nobody has taken them seriously. Economic sanctions is one thing, but permitting the 4 years of development of a nuclear weapon at a time when the president of a country steps forward in a public forum and threatens to annihilate Israel, which means annihilating the only Jewish state, is unacceptable to the American Jewish community and unacceptable to have leadership from behind. It just hasn't worked. Ask yourselves what foreign leaders consider themselves friends of the president. Putin, offended. Mubarak, offended and driven out. Assad, maybe he does, because he's been allowed to remain in, 32,000 people dead. Who's the foreign leader that recently stood up for President Obama? Chavez in Iran. On the eve of his own election, he talked about Obama in the White House, and I'm paraphrasing, his friend. Remember the photograph of the president embracing Chavez. On our borders, not far, in Iran, in Venezuela today, there is more Iranian Hezbollah activity than anywhere in our hemisphere. Building of naval weapons, building of missiles, building of capability on our borders, and the White House has ignored that. So when we get to the issue of Israel and Iran, make no mistake about it. Prime Minister Netanyahu has said publicly he's not involved in this election. What he's involved in is standing up on behalf of Israel and the Jewish people. And since the 2010 elections, you've seen a major shift of the president's administration attempting to do more for Israel. But you heard my question earlier today, and that was it right for Debbie Wasserman Schultz, as chair of the Democratic National Committee, to come forth in a meeting with the Prime Minister and the Republican Jewish Coalition and other Jewish leaders and ask that Israel be taken off the table? Why did she do so? Because everybody knows that Israel is a litmus test. And the fact is, as you heard from Jennifer Rubin here today, Israel belongs on the table. And when you take a look at the last 4 years of the Obama administration, there's proof in the pudding. It's not just about words, it's about deeds. How many times has this president gone to Israel? 0. How many times did this president go near or fly near or over the airspace? Went to Egypt, gave that great speech, offended Mubarak, our ally of 30 years, a stable peace in the region between Mubarak for 30 years with every single prime minister of Israel. Our president, President Obama, not once has been to Israel. And why didn't he go? He didn't go because he believes exactly what we heard from Ms. Posner earlier today. You heard me ask the question, why did she raise at the end of her discussion here today, why did she raise the issue of, her words were occupation, and her words were settlement enterprise? She raised those issues because as an advocate of the president's administration, you should know those are the views of the Obama administration. And therefore, the money that the Republican Jewish Coalition is indeed spending, you heard about the $6.5 million, targeted for not just 3 states, but 11 states, is designed to move the needle because it's designed to expose exactly what, in the view of the Republican Jewish Coalition, on whose behalf I appear here today, to expose exactly what positions the Obama administration has taken, not in words, but in deeds. No peace process, absolute failure. No stopping of Iran getting the bomb, so far an absolute failure. No coalitions that have brought him together with foreign leaders in a way where they consider him reliable friends. Not Russia, not China, Venezuela. Iran, he held out his hand remains out, and in the meantime, the bomb is building. We heard here today views from the left, views from the right, views from people from various religions, different walks of life, views on foreign policy, views on domestic issues, whether it's on abortion and the rights of pro-choice, whether it's on the issue of Israel and Iran. What we have to understand is this is really a crucially important election. And the Republican Jewish Coalition's analysis of the American Jewish community is as follows. Because the opinions of the Jewish community matter, our people think, they stand up, they speak out, they vote, they motivate others to vote, they read, they listen, they consider, and they form judgments. The effort that is ongoing is not a futile effort. It is an effort designed to move more than just the needle, but to move the minds of the American Jewish community to not simply assume, as their parents and grandparents did, that the Democratic Party, of which I was a lifelong registered member until the Obama administration, don't just assume the Republican Jewish Coalition says to the American Jewish community that the Democratic Party is the only way. There is another way where leadership is forward, not from behind. And when I shifted my registration, it was because I felt that President Obama was not the right person for our country, and I believe it now. I say to you that on the issue of national security, Israel and Iran, energy security, economic security, and even social justice entitlements, we need to have a much more thoughtful set of actions, not telling Congress, here's thousands of pages, and I say you will pass it, and you pass it. What about what the American people want? And lastly, what about what the American people need? Not just the American Jewish community, but the American people need. On each of these important issues, the fact of the matter is, perhaps it's best seen in the debacle in Libya of the past few weeks. How tragically that on September 11th, our ambassador was alone because we, our government, pulled out the Marine contingent, pulled out the security contingent, and in spite of requests, left him naked and now dead. How tragic that he is gone and the other three. But what's even more tragic, I'm sorry to say, is the failure of the administration to stand up and be counted and accept responsibility instead of always pointing finger at blame. When we listen to the last debate tonight, I hope you will consider some of these issues as I've summarized them, because they are issues being presented and advocated by the Republican Jewish Coalition so that the American people can clearly hear alternative views as it relates to, let's talk about deeds and actions and not just words. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Heideman. All right, we do have a couple more minutes. It's been a wonderful program. I'm going to ask a quick question. In your capacity as working for the Republican Jewish Coalition, what's the biggest hurdle with your typical garden variety Jewish voter to bring them over to the Republicans? Is there an issue? Is there a stereotype? What stands in the way?
I think the first issue is tradition. The second issue is, as you heard today, the overwhelmingly strong support on the pro-choice issue, because there is a difference. And the third issue that seems to now be playing out is tied to the pro-choice issue, is tied to a presumption, therefore, that the governor is not as supportive of women as the president is. Yet, could he change his answer? He certainly could have answered, I picked a woman, a qualified woman, as my lieutenant governor for Massachusetts. It's not what he said, but be that as it may, those are the issues, that is tradition and pro-choice, and the use of that issue are those that are the biggest obstacles. On the other issues, no question, when you combine national security, when you combine economic security, when you combine Iran and Israel, overwhelming movement, more than, by the way, just in the 11 target states that the Republican Jewish Coalition has focused on. When you line up all of those other issues, there will be big number changes. How those will play out with electoral votes in our system, we'll have to see. And by the way, nothing wrong with the RJC or anybody else spending millions of dollars to try to get out the vote and urge people to vote in a certain way. That's the American way.
Yes, sir. Isaac.
Thank you for speaking, Mr. Heideman. You noted that a big problem. Thank you. That a big problem is blame, finger pointing, and much of your powerful rhetoric was about the problems with the past 4 years, and it's important to reflect on the presidency when we look forward for the next 4 years. But what I didn't hear, and I'd love to hear more about, is what evidence is there that Romney would be able to play, specifically about playing hardball with Iran and nuclear capability. What evidence is there that if Romney moved into the White House, he'd be able to play harder ball than Obama?
Romney's religious values, his personal family values, his commitment to solid economic values, are values that transcend also to proof when he was in the governorship of taking a state that was teetering and making it number one in education and making it bipartisan in all approaches. With the Olympics, he showed success. In fact, in each and everything that the governor has done, he has been successful. I don't want to finger point at the president. I want to simply say the track record of the governor has been superb in each and everything that he has done. He's a man that if you met him, you would know just by looking in his eyes, shaking his hand, that he is a leader who does exactly what he says. And what he has said is that he will build those international coalitions, but he will draw the red line and take very strong positions in relation to those, and we have every reason to believe not only his capability, but to believe his determination, because he is a man of perseverance and conviction.
As we draw this down, Mr. Heideman, we've asked some of our speakers today, the number was 76%. Do you care to venture, I don't want to put you on the spot, a prediction where you think the Jewish community will come in, Romney, Obama, what percentage number?
Yeah, I think we're likely to see a 10% drop from what President Obama achieved with the Jewish vote in 2008, which will take it down into the 60s. Exactly where it'll bottom out in the 60s, don't know. But in certain swing states, that could well make a difference. By the way, an issue nobody addressed today is the factor of early voting. Nobody really knows in this election how early voting is going to play out, including the absentee voting. You heard about the Republican Jewish coalition or other efforts to get Jewish people abroad to focus on the election and to vote. And in fact, nobody really knows how many of those votes will be cast, what state they live in, and how that may tip if you get down into the hundreds. So I think you're going to see most likely a 10-point drop by the president in the Jewish community's vote, and perhaps even more and heavier in those swing states. You know, we've all learned that it's one person, one vote, in spite of the Electoral College issue, that every vote matters, and in this election, every vote will matter, and the heavy effort to turn out the vote from all communities is playing an important factor, and in the Jewish community, it's playing a very important factor, and money is being spent specifically on building awareness and getting people to go out and vote for the candidate of their choice. And the Republican Jewish Coalition believes that most of the Jewish community living outside the United States will vote for Governor Romney, and that in the swing states that most of the Jewish vote that hasn't already decided, committed, or voted will shift and is shifting over to Governor Romney, and I believe well-deserved.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Heideman, for a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.